I think curiosity is something that is extremely important, and I've always had the desire to figure things out, and whether that was early in my career, figuring out how to use Bullhorn, for example, that has helped me a whole lot, but really making the most of systems. There's lots of technologies out there today that can really help reduce the workload of getting certain tasks done. Like if you are in the role as a recruiter, you have to make sure that you enter the data, keep the data updated, and there's so much ways to increase the speed and the efficiency of those processes, whether that is formatting a resume, making sure that you get your notes in. Today you see also like Ringover, the ability to transcribe conversations rather than relying on the recruiter to type something in.
Arne, welcome to the Staffing Ring podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. I know we've been back and forth a little bit to find the right time. You've been busy and I know traveling, so I'd like to get started really, thinking about the overall industry, where we're at as we get towards the end of 2024, looking forward to next year. What are you seeing as some of the major kind of trends or things agency leaders and managers should be kind of considering?
Yeah, I think it's not been an easy year for staffing. Like if you look at any of the numbers out there, the industry is definitely having hard times. So we at Bullhorn in the beginning were talking a lot about winning new business. That's one of the key things that used to be very easy 2-3 years ago. People were able to choose, I'm going to work on this job or not. And now, they're shy of work. So that's definitely a big change. And then I think, AI, we can't stop hearing about it. So I think those two things are definitely the theme for 2024.
Absolutely. And do you think about any trends or developments in the technology space, or just the approach that agencies could be thinking more about in terms of that business development, about winning new business? Maybe that they haven't built that muscle back in 21 or 22, that they really should be thinking about how to go to market in 2025.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think also coming from a staffing background myself, we had very robust processes for managing your candidate database and having regular check-ins and really building out that community, where the client side was a bit more transactional. And I think, as you said, building out that muscle is something that many agencies haven't done. And there's many ways that companies can do that. Like I think at the end of the day, even with the basics, making sure that everything is in place, that you have your process, that you understand who your best customers are, that you keep track of who are the people that you're doing business with, are they moving into other companies that you chase them. So there's lots of things that are sort of common sense, but you have to execute on them. And there's some interesting technologies that help companies also to make that easier, to keep track of where the opportunities are, to make sure that you stay on top of like who's moving into new roles.
And what we see in terms of the churn or the turnover of recruiters is certainly highlighting that perhaps weakness that a lot of agencies have in terms of how to build out strong processes that new recruiters can come into the business and really kind of follow that best practice. So, I think aside from the technology, which we all really value in terms of bringing the right tools to the agency, it's also about their approach, isn't it? In terms of good practice, following a process, and seeing actually what's winning in the market today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think there's like one specific way to do this, but I see some, like from my own experience, where if the roles come in, you don't really focus on how to get them. And I think the most important thing that you can do as an agency is like the relationships that you have. That's what it's all about, managing those relationships and making sure that you reach out to the right people at the right time. And yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, there's certainly, in terms of thinking about what are the strategies that are going to help agencies win in the year ahead. I think making a really conscious decision about the process, about the systems and the people, and then also the tools or the tech stack. And I think underlying all of that is data, right? We talk a lot about AI and automation, and really it's data that's going to power a lot of that information and workflow and outcomes. So, I'm sure through your role, partner managing a lot of the marketplace partners at Bullhorn, how are you seeing integrations and data integration play a part in how agencies are thinking about their performance?
I think there's lots of technologies out there today that can really help reduce the workload of getting certain tasks done. Like if you are in the role as a recruiter, you have to make sure that you enter the data, keep the data updated, and there's so much ways to increase the speed and the efficiency of those processes, whether that is formatting a resume, making sure that you get your notes in. Today you see also like Ringover, the ability to transcribe conversations rather than relying on the recruiter to type something in. And I think also having some bots take the first screening, having a first conversation, and having that interaction with the candidate. So there's many technologies out there that are really make a difference, I think, in not changing process, but because at the end of the day, there's many new technologies and also especially a lot of expectations around AI, but the fundamental game didn't really change. You are still engaging with candidates, proposing them jobs, and then proposing those candidates to your clients. It's just like a lot of technologies today can reduce tasks where a recruiter might have spent 30 minutes or 20 minutes for each candidate in the past. They can reduce that to a mere minute or something. So I think that's where a lot of gains lie today.
And that's such an important point, I think, to highlight is, all of the great tools, the AI, the automation, it's really to advance processes and ways of working. And yes, there'll be some new ways of working, but the fundamentals of talent matching with placements and roles is still to the core of the business. And I think documenting, what is the best practice process in the business, and then thinking about, okay, which elements can we automate, which elements can we enhance with AI. I do, certainly in talking with the team at Ringover and other marketplace partners, a lot of agencies, I think there just seems to be so much choice in the market. And Christian, how are you seeing the best marketplace partners really be able to consult and almost be the guide to the agency, to help make informed decisions and not just be a sales person, but also just really helping agencies to work out how to actually bring all the technology and tools together?
So I think there's some technologies that really focus on the pain points. No, it goes back to the process. Like if you are an agency and you're looking at technology, you should absolutely understand the workflow for your recruiter, like every step from the first point of contact with a candidate all the way to placing them. Same with a client, and really understanding how much time you spend on each of those steps, and where you have certain gaps today. And I think that the good marketplace partners, they were able to find those gaps and have a proposition that just really resonates. Like, Bullhorn is very focused on staffing, and it is a different beast from other recruitment or from other technologies. I think that's like a baseline thing for success in the marketplace, and by extension, being able to help staffing agencies really understanding their world. I see some companies who struggle with that, who say, yeah, the tool is great, but have you really put thought into adapting it to the staffing industry? So I think that's a really, really big thing. And also, when I was a buyer, when I was working for a Bullhorn customer and I spoke to any vendor, my first question was always about the integration. So I see some products who really deeply integrate with the workflow, which not only gives the user a far better experience, but again, it adds to time savings and really allowing the recruiter to work in one system. That is often a big differentiator. Like, you can see some sort of lazy integrations who get the job done. They get maybe the basic data that you're treating into the system, and you see very thoughtful integrations who give the user a seamless experience. So I think as a buyer, that's definitely something that, helps to focus on.
Yes, yeah. And I think that also highlights a great point in terms of when you are that buyer in the agency, whether you're the leader or the manager or the ops director, it's about being very clear about what are your pain points, because there will be often multiple solutions which will, part of the offering will overlap and serve your pain point, but which is the one that really hits the nail on the head and is not just a secondary feature of that product. So I think, again, the beauty of the marketplace is that you can find specific niche, solutions which are going to really address your specific pain points. So I guess, the takeaway being, document and really figure out your requirements in detail. So in terms of, balancing out that need to lean into AI automation, and also, the people side of the business, which is, business development, candidate sourcing, interviewing, client work. How are you hearing about, again, that kind of that balance or that mix of technology and people and really making sure we get the best of both?
It's obviously still fairly early in the AI journey. I mean, everybody is doing something with AI, and if there's a way to call what you're doing AI, then that's great, because that's all the rave there is today. I think from my perspective, it has been very interesting to see that the technologies will reach out about integrating or partnering with Bullhorn in different waves, where the moment that people started having access to LLMs, one of the first use cases was like, hey, I built this tool to write a job description. It's not very innovative, and also everybody can do it. So I was always quite skeptical about building a business around that. But I think, to answer your question about having the best of both worlds, there's a lot of stuff like writing a job description, like adding notes into the system, summarizing, formatting a CV, which will not affect the interaction with your candidate or your clients at all, because it's not really the changing the interaction. Is just a background process. So those are things that buyers who might be a bit more skeptical about bringing AI into the process, honestly, shouldn't be afraid of. Of course, it gets a bit more interesting when you replace certain steps in the process, or you're actually replacing the communication with a candidate by AI via a chatbot or the likes. And I think at the end of the day, you need to understand where you are adding value. If you are doing in-depth interviews, then maybe you don't want to replace that with AI. But the first few screening questions where you're just asking like, hey, are you willing to work in this location for this salary? And with this, whatever, like a few basic screening questions, you can do that. So I think when you speak to customers, you see that some have a lot of reluctance to start doing these technologies, and some others, they just try. But I do feel that there's plenty of optimization to be done where you don't interact with the customers or with the candidates. And that, yeah, it's also interesting to see that candidates actually respond to it, that respond well to it in general. I think the example has been absolutely beaten to death, but the e-commerce experience where you get informed along the journey about your payment, about your shipment, when it's going to arrive. There's lots of touch points that the recruiter wouldn't really add any value. So yeah, let the automation do that, let the AI do that, and the candidate will feel supported. When they actually need to speak to a person, yeah, that's when you maybe do not want to send them to a chatbot.
Yes, yeah. And, in terms of how AI and automation will help, I think elevate the value that agencies can provide to their clients and candidates is, to me, super exciting in terms of, moving away from that sort of transactional part of the business more to the strategic and consultative part of the business. And so, what I think is massively important for agencies to think about is that business development on the client side, how to nurture, or almost as if you're a sales or SaaS company, you're really like nurturing that pipeline. The second is brand and website and the whole experience that both candidates and clients will have of your agency. And then the third, which you've just touched on, is the candidate experience, right? Having that almost that Amazon experience of just it being automated, but also coming in with that for that personal touch as well. So I think those three things, to me, are going to have a big impact on the success for agencies. Are there any new technologies or approaches that you're seeing come through that you're excited about that might be kind of should be on the roadmap or radar of agencies for the next 6 or 12 months?
So there's different ways to look at this. Like there's lots of technologies that I'm not necessarily excited about, but who, because of AI, have gotten actually quite good. And I think like CV formatting and the basic pre-screening has gotten a lot better. If you think about interacting with a chatbot 3-4 years ago, it was often a laughable experience where
Terrible.
like every single question, every single interaction would confuse the system. And yeah, like it was just a horrible experience. So I'm not really excited about reformatting a CV, but having been a recruiter, yeah, I would have loved a tool that would have saved me that time every single time I was going to present the candidate. So I think while it's not terribly exciting, it's great to see that those technologies are becoming more commonplace and really save recruiters time, making it a better experience. I do think also like what Ringover is doing with the transcription, the Empower tool, going beyond just the transcription, because that's again a very standard use case. All of the platforms today have transcription, but really going beyond that and trying to understand what are the insights, what can we learn from that conversation for many purposes, whether that is training your people or just getting data out of it and saying, okay, these are the competitors were mentioned, these were the objections that you mentioned. I think that's really exciting, that kind of technology. And I think also in the marketplace, there's some things that adapt really well or that complement Bullhorn really well when it comes to like top of the funnel automation, tools like Sourcewell or Coral Starfish, who are giving you the extension where in Bullhorn you are working in your database, but these tools bridge the gap between all the external platforms that you're using, whether that's LinkedIn, other job boards, or websites, and Bullhorn, the ability to get data in and automate some of the outreach. So I think those are tools that I find very, very powerful.
Yes, yeah, and the ability to curate the whole experience, as well as really thinking about how to have that best-in-class data hygiene, data enrichment, right through, from the hire to, placement process. Absolutely fascinating. So, Arne, I'm conscious of our time. I want to start wrapping up, and so we've got a few questions just to get to know you a bit more, and so let's dive in. There's a rapid fire, just quick Q&A. First one, I know where you live. I think the answer might be clear, but beach or snow?
Well, yeah, since I live in Spain, I do prefer the beach. So
There you go.
not hard to get any snow around here.
Makes sense. Coffee or tea?
I drink both, but I have lots of tea. It's a weakness. I have more tea than I could possibly drink in the next couple of years. But every time I see some kind of tea shop, I'm still tempted to buy more. So has to be tea.
So you're never short of a selection of tea for every cup.
No, quite the opposite. Have way too many options and flavors.
Yes, yeah. Salsa or guacamole?
Guacamole. The avocados are, very diverse and very flavorful.
Yes, yeah. Texting or calling? How do people normally reach you?
I'd say mostly texting. But I think I'm probably in between the older generation.
Okay.
I have preferred just calling. And I'm not the biggest texter either. So, but if I had to pick, texting.
Yeah. Virtual or in real life?
Well, in real life, obviously I work remotely and I enjoy those conversations much more when I have the ability to see people. On the other hand, I work with so many people around the world that it has to be virtual a lot of the time.
Sure. So really getting that best of both, which is the benefit of the technology and ways of working in the 2020s. So ebooks or physical books?
I think physical books have they are quite. It's a bit different experience, but it's just so practical to have all your books in an e-reader. So, but I have to go for physical books.
Nice, yeah. I certainly had a phase of having everything on my Kindle, but I certainly have migrated back towards the more kind of physical end of the scale as well. And in terms of books, podcasts, anything like you've seen or heard recently that you'd like to share with the audience?
I think podcast-wise, I enjoy. I used to listen a lot to the Tim Ferriss podcast, and there's other similar ones where it's not really about the podcaster, but just listening to ideas of great writers. I think the other day I was listening to Diary of a CEO with Naval Harari on his new book Nexus. So I think
Oh wow,
I haven't read it, but that's definitely on my list to read. If anybody hasn't read Sapiens, then I would definitely recommend they do that. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I've seen some reviews of his new book, and I think just even from the the topics we've spoken about today, I think it could be hugely relevant, and just the way he writes and get so deep into these topics is brilliant. So I'll certainly drop that in the show notes, and I'll also put that into my must be reading in the next few months as well list, because I think certainly fascinating. And in terms of podcasts, Tim Ferriss, Stephen Bartlett, and Diary CEO are both, as you say, really thought provoking, just from a general life and business point of view. So I think,
I think most of all that they have opened me to so many brilliant minds where it's not really so important who is doing the interview, but they give exposure to lots of interesting writers, artists, thinkers. So I think that's the main benefit.
I do think also it's a really relevant thing to consider for an staffing or recruiting agency is, we in the industry and those, practicing and in the agencies, it's very easy to be super focused on the business, the industry, and it's actually often super valuable to also step back and think, well, what's the greater picture here, and what can I learn from other industries or thought leaders? And I think that is actually a relevant point here in this discussion too.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. So we're wrapping up. Couple of last questions. So across your career, Arne, and whether it be in Bullhorn or before, is there anything like a piece of advice or a way of working or an approach or value that you've really held steady and has really kind of helped you in your career?
Well, I think curiosity is something that is extremely important, and I've always had the desire to figure things out, and whether that was early in my career, figuring out how to use Bullhorn, for example, that has helped me a whole lot, but really making the most of systems. Like, we are in the software space, and most products are only as good as you use them or as you implement them. And I think in most roles, like, that ability to really understand the tools and make the most out of it and understand the features and how to leverage them, that is I think extremely important, and also a big reason why I enjoy what I do.
Indeed. I think being curious has to be foundational, right, in terms of software development and business development as well. So we've spoken a lot today about the technology, about business development, and kind of the next 6 or 12 months ahead. What's one piece of advice or just thought that you'd like to kind of leave the audience in terms of just wrapping up the discussion today?
I think with all the talk on AI, and you've already mentioned it, but sometimes I see that it is a solution looking for a problem, and that's why I can't emphasize enough how important it is to really understand your processes, where it hurts, and then see maybe AI can play a role in it. But I think sometimes people get lost in that, and of course, AI is going to transform a lot of things, but we shouldn't always start with the AI. And that doesn't mean that people shouldn't just go out there and try to understand what can be solved. But that is one thing that we should not get ahead of ourselves and think that AI is the only solution to anything that we can think of.
I love that. I think, just that one sentence of, solutions looking for a problem goes back to what we were saying earlier in terms of, first define your requirements and your problem, and then seek out solutions that are going to really address that. So, brilliant takeaway. Arne, is there any other question or topic I should have asked you today?
No, I think this has been great. So it has been lovely speaking to you, Jason. And all good.
Great. And finally then, where can people find you online?
So LinkedIn is the only social platform that I use, so I encourage people to connect with me there.
Great. We will drop your profile link in the show notes. It's been amazing to have chat, and really fascinating discussion around technology, process, people, and the world of staffing and recruiting agencies. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Staffing Ring.